tell us what it was about your upbringing that put you onto the pathway of wanting to become a producer and wanting to become part of the music industry.
Man, I would say with my upbringing, it was just always being around music. Of course, like my parents was a big fan of the 70s, the classic 70s soul groups, Earth, Wind and Fires, the Marvin Gayes, all the legendary 70s groups. So they will always have it on in the house or in the car when we're listening to it. So there was just something that gravitated me towards just just the aura of song, horn sections and string sections and how they were arranged. And I think it was just something that gravitated me towards that.
Did you play instruments at this young age?
So I played alto sax in school from sixth grade
Mm,
to I graduated.
mm.
And I took piano lessons for a couple of years, but I did away with that because I got bored quick, and I didn't have
Mm.
the patience to just sit down. I wanted to be able to play like Mozart like instantly. So, just the time that you had to put into that. So I have knowledge. I do know music theory, but I just kind of dabble with the keys, and I can find my way, but I'm not like straight musician.
At least you got that educational background. Because
Yes, I do. Yeah.
of course, you did your degree in audio engineering, which we'll get
Marginal
to.
engineer. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So which we'll get to later on. And you said you play the first instrument you mentioned was
Alto
this.
sax.
Have you ever, just out of interest, have you ever utilized that in any of your productions out of sex?
Never ever.
It's always the first time. That's an idea right there.
No, I've never used alto sax in any of my music.
If you use it in your future music, I want credit, man.
If I use it in my future music, of course I would use it in a different way though.
Okay, okay,
I would
okay.
I would sample it in and then I manipulate it and use it to where you won't know it's a saxophone.
Okay, okay. You heard it here first, man. I'm looking out for that. All right, so let's move on to your group, Strange Fruit Project. Tell us how that became a thing.
So Strange Fruit Project was like really the foundation uh of my career. It was basically me, my cousin Myth, um, my homie my own, and then originally we had a female vocalist in the group. Her name was La Soul, but eventually it just became us three members, the MCs, and I was the producer of the group. But yeah, we started that group just because we wanted to. It's we were very intentional about what we wanted to make. We were inspired by obviously the Dilla and Slum and Pete Rock and Erykah Badu and the whole Soul Aquariums. So that was kind of our intent. Is like, how can we, do what we love, but then also like be intentional about the music we put out and be able to just really inspire people through our music, like others have inspired us.
And then, of course, the song I just played was the first commercial single, right? So from the
Mhm.
time you became a group to the point where you've released this commercial single, give us a bit
Mhm.
of a backstory of how it made that transition.
So, so this song right here, All the Way, was actually on our second album. It
Hmm.
was the first commercial or independently commercial release from the second album. But I remember like being in this space of working on that because prior to that, we released our first album, entitled From Divine. And that particular album was like the album that really showed us that, hey, this could be something. Like it's something about this because that was the album where we did everything ourselves. I produced all the music. I didn't have like co-producers I was working with. I didn't have any musicians. It was like, do it, find a studio, record it. Then I was mixing it on my little Dell computer, just trying to find my way and trying to figure out like how to, you know. So we take what we done for that particular project, and then we printed up 1,000 CDs on our own with our own money. We
How
put it
much?
out.
How much that cost you?
It was about $1,500,
Wow.
maybe
Okay.
maybe $1,400, and it was like 1,000 CDs. We had like 300 posters, and it was like a little package deal. So We pressed 1,000 CDs up and we put them out on our own. We just had like our I forgot the name of the page, but it was a page where we could people could go to and listen to the music and then they could like purchase the CD. So we put that up. And from that particular project, we started to book like local shows. As we continued to do these local shows, we started to gain fans. And the music just really started to spread. That was the MySpace era. So
That's a
MySpace,
throwback.
yeah. So MySpace, we were starting to put it out there. And then eventually, man, things just really just started to take off to where it was a point to where like Questlove got a hold of us. He started posting us on like you guys remember the OK Player forum?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, player.
Yeah, bro. He started posting us in the forum. So we were gaining fans through that. He passed our CD to Erica Badu and was like, yo, these cats in your city, you know about them? And she became an instant fan. So from that first album, like things really started to happen and we started to see like, oh, this could really be, we just need to just keep hammering and this because this could really be something. So after the independent success of the first album, we were going into our second album and there was like no pressure, but then there was a little bit of pressure because it's like, okay, what do we do now? Uh, and I knew like production wise, I wanted to make sure that I was growing from the first album. So it's like introducing new elements. That's when I started to sample because on the first album, there wasn't really many samples because I didn't have a sampler until like the last part of that album. So I was getting into sampling more. I started to work with a couple musicians that would play on top of stuff. So yeah, this was pretty much the all the way joint, man, was pretty much just me. I had this routine of what I would do as well. I would go after work because I was working a collections job.
Hmm.
And every Friday after work, I would go to this place called Half Price Bookstores. And
Hmm.
this was basically like a bookstore, but in the back of the store, they had like boxes of records. So they had a dollar box. They had records for $2. They had a record for records in a box for $5. So I would go here every Friday and I would just purchase about $30, $40 worth of records. And I would always pick the records based on the covers. So
Mm.
I remember this David T. Walker. This was a unique cover because I don't know if you remember the cover of this particular album, but it was like a semi-naked torso of a woman, but it was covered in
Yeah,
like
that would do
the rose
it.
petals. Yeah, so that was the reason why I picked that particular record up because I'm like, oh, if the music sounds like this, it's gonna be like these beautiful landscapes and these melodies and different things. So when I actually brought it home and played that record, that's exactly what it was when I played that. If you notice when you played that sample, I think like the first minute and a half of that is just him doing the jazz
Mm.
chords and the riffs on the guitar. So I remember when I played that, it made me think of course, a Dilla record, but I'm trying to see in particular. Oh, it was a Slum record. Let's say, dun, 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 dun. What is the look of? It's got something to do with the look of love. I think it was
Right.
part one or something, and it's got the guitar strums. So
Hmm.
that's what that record made me think of. So I'm pretty sure when I started this particular record, I started with the drums because I was always starting with drums back then. I would do my drums and then I would chop the sample and then just play like different parts of the sample while the drums were playing. So
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I constructed it that way. And then I added like this little sub bass from I want to say I had a motif at that time, or no, I had a Roland XP50 at that time and I would just sample the bass and then just play it on my EPS. Uh, so yeah, I did that. Sent it to the fellas. They loved it. They wrote to it. I wrote to it. We went to the studio. We recorded it. And once we recorded it, we was like, man, this could be something. And at that time, we had just got management. Shout out my boys, B Wells and Vincent. But they was like, yo, S, you should go to LA and lock in with his name is Carlos. I don't know if you heard of the group The Rebirth, but they was an LA based
Mm.
group, soulful group, super dope. And he was the guitarist and the bass player for that group. So they flew me to LA and I locked in for Carlos. He mixed the record. He added like some additional bass and some guitar on it, the guitar, extra guitar that you hear on the record. Uh, and yeah, and that's pretty much how that song came about. And from that, they he was part of a label. He had a label in LA that did vinyl releases. So he liked the song so much, he was like, "We want to do a 12-inch vinyl release deal with you guys." So they're the ones that released the 12-inch of that I All the Way. So that's pretty much how that record came about.
Wow, I love the detail, man. I love the detail. Appreciate the detail. Now, prior to you releasing the single, you detail something in your book that I think is quite interesting. That
Mhm.
could be inspirational for people listening who want to pursue the career of music. Tell us about the first show that you did, if you know what I'm talking about, where nobody showed up.
Oh yeah, okay. That's so this was actually prior to Strange Fruit. So shout out
Okay.
my homies, man. Like we had a crew called Third Eye Militia. And basically, Third Eye Militia was a crew, but it was like me and my cousin. Our group before Strange Fruit Project was called Symbolic Elements. So we had a group called Symbolic Elements, and then rest in peace, my homie One Self. He was in a group with his brothers called Verbal Seed, and then we had Butterfinger, my man's Moni Moan. So we all had, it was just a collective, and I had just moved up to Dallas. When I moved to Dallas, man, it was like starting over because I had no equipment. I didn't know anybody here, but I knew I wanted to like infiltrate the music scene. So it was just me like every weekend making sure I was attending shows that was coming into town, going to different venues and trying to meet with like the club promoters. And it was one particular instance where I was trying to get book some shows for my group. So I went to this one club and talked to the promoter, and he booked us for a day. He was like, "Yeah, y'all can do this Friday night. You know, you guys will have a 30-minute set." So my fellas come up to Dallas for the show night, and we go there, and about 30 minutes before showtime, it's like an empty club. It's just music playing. There's a DJ up there, but it's an empty club. And showtime rolls around and it's still empty. There's literally nobody there. There's maybe the bartenders there, the promoter was there, but it's nobody there. And we wind up not even doing the show because no one came out. But it was that thing of not knowing, just being early on, not knowing that, okay, you gotta promote the show, you gotta let people know. And it was just me being naive, thinking like, okay, we're gonna go there. They're promoting the show, they have people already coming, so we're gonna be performing in front of this particular group, but it didn't happen that way, man. So it was one of those moments, it was definitely a learning moment.
I could just imagine you showing up to the venue like, yeah, we're gonna turn up tonight, and then get
Yeah,
there, no one's
was
there.
to be honest with you, it was super discouraging.
I can imagine. I can imagine, man. I can imagine. I
It was
remember. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was a very discouraging moment.
No, I can imagine. But hey, it all worked out in the end, didn't it?
Yeah, it all works out in the end.